The napkin landed beside Daniel Cooper's coffee just as the woman at the corner table smiled for the cameras. "Help! Don't let him take me out the back." Daniel stared at the words. Then he looked up. Across the crowded Manhattan restaurant, a billionaire CEO in a cream-colored suit sat perfectly still beside a man with a hand resting lightly on her shoulder. To everyone else, it looked affectionate. To Daniel, who had spent 12 years learning how frightened people try to hide fear, it looked wrong. The woman never touched her food. The man beside her watched every door. And beneath the table, her fingers were trembling. Daniel folded the napkin into his palm. Dad, his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, sat across from him, a strawberry milkshake untouched between her hands. Daniel forced himself to smile. "Yes, sweetheart. You look like you forgot something." He had. How to breathe. Daniel was not a detective. He wasn't a hero. He was a city bus mechanic who worked night shifts and raised Lily alone after his wife, Grace, died 4 years earlier. His life was usually simple. Wake Lily for school. Fix engines. Come home exhausted. Burn dinner occasionally. Pretend everything was under control. Tonight was supposed to be special. It was Grace's birthday. Every year, Daniel and Lily came to this same restaurant because Grace had once said their lemon pie was too expensive to be legal. But now, Daniel had a frightened stranger's note in his hand. And that stranger happened to be Victoria Hale. Everyone knew Victoria Hale, the face of Hale Meridian, a billionaire CEO, magazine covers, television interviews, the woman who had turned her father's failing shipping company into one of the largest logistics firms in the country. Daniel looked toward her again. The man beside her leaned close and whispered something. Victoria's smile disappeared for half a second, then returned. Too fast. Daniel stood. "Bathroom," he told Lily. She narrowed her eyes. "You're not sick, are you?" "No. You promised not to leave me with strangers again." Daniel glanced toward their waitress, Mrs. Alvarez, who had served them for years. "Mrs. Alvarez isn't a stranger." Lily sighed. "Fine. But hurry." Daniel crossed the restaurant. Not toward Victoria. Toward the hostess stand. "Do you have a back exit?" he quietly asked. The hostess pointed down a hallway. "Why? Could you call 911? Her face changed. Daniel placed the folded napkin on the counter. The hostess read it. And at that exact moment, the restaurant lights flickered. Victoria Hale stood. The man beside her immediately took her arm. "Time to go," he said. Victoria looked toward Daniel. Just once. Her eyes met his. Then she shook her head. A tiny movement. "No, don't." Daniel froze. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. Why ask for help, then refuse it? The man led her toward the back hallway. Daniel followed. By the time he reached the exit, Victoria and the man were gone. But outside, there was no black SUV. No waiting security team. Only rainwater shining under the streetlights and a silver delivery van speeding away. Daniel heard Lily's voice behind him. "Dad." He turned. She stood at the restaurant doorway, terrified. And Daniel felt something worse than confusion. Guilt. He had promised Grace, in the final weeks before she died, that Lily would never again have to wonder whether someone was coming back for her. Daniel ran to his daughter. "I'm sorry. You left." "I know. Who was that woman?" Daniel looked at the empty street. "I don't know. But that wasn't true. Something had just happened. And somehow, Victoria Hale had trusted him enough to ask for help." The next morning, Daniel found a news alert on his cracked phone. Billionaire CEO Victoria Hale missing after private dinner. Daniel read it 3 times. Then he called the police. 2 detectives arrived at his apartment before noon. Daniel told them everything. The napkin, the man, the van, the strange moment when Victoria had told him not to interfere. One detective listened carefully. The other looked around Daniel's tiny kitchen, at Lily's schoolbooks, and the stack of unpaid bills beside the refrigerator. "You're sure she gave you the note?" Daniel stared at him. "She didn't slip it to my bank account." The detective didn't smile. Daniel knew what they were thinking. Why would one of the most powerful women in America choose him? The answer was sitting on his kitchen table. A wrinkled photograph from 4 years ago. Daniel and Grace. Victoria Hale. And a little girl Daniel had never seen before. He picked it up slowly. He had forgotten about that day. 5 years earlier, before Grace got sick, Daniel had stopped on a highway after seeing an overturned car. He had pulled a woman and her daughter from the wreckage before the vehicle caught fire. The woman had been bleeding badly. Daniel remembered staying until the ambulance arrived. He had never known her name. He never asked. Victoria Hale. But that still didn't explain the note, or why she had been afraid. Then Lily noticed something. "Dad, what's written on the back?" Daniel turned the photograph over. There were numbers, coordinates. The police traced them to an abandoned Hale Meridian warehouse across the river. By nightfall, Daniel was standing behind yellow police tape, watching officers search the building. They found Victoria, alive, but alone. The man from the restaurant was nowhere inside, and Victoria refused to tell the police why she had been taken. Instead, she asked for Daniel. When he entered the ambulance, she looked smaller than she had the night before. No cameras, no perfect smile, just exhaustion. "You shouldn't have followed me," she whispered. Daniel folded his arms. "Then why did you ask for help?" Victoria looked through the ambulance window. "Because I needed someone to know I was afraid." Daniel said nothing. After a long silence, she explained. The man at dinner was her younger brother, Marcus. For months, Marcus had been secretly selling company assets to cover enormous gambling debts. When Victoria discovered it, he panicked. He hadn't planned to hurt her. He had planned to frighten her into signing documents that would transfer control of part of the company. At the restaurant, Victoria realized he had arranged everything. The cameras outside, the security team, the van, all of it. "But why shake your head at me?" Daniel asked. Victoria's eyes filled. Because Lily was there. Daniel felt his anger disappear. Victoria had been afraid, but she had still seen his daughter. "He told me if I caused a scene, innocent people could get hurt," she said. I didn't know if he was lying. Daniel looked down. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from understanding. "You didn't need a hero," he said quietly. Victoria looked at him. "No, you needed somebody to believe you." That broke something inside her. She covered her face. And for the first time, the billionaire CEO stopped trying to look strong. Weeks later, Marcus turned himself in after his lawyer reached a deal. There was no dramatic revenge. No public humiliation. Just consequences. Victoria visited Daniel's apartment one Saturday with no security, no cameras, and a bakery box in her hands. Lily opened the door. "You're the napkin lady." Victoria actually laughed. "I suppose I am." Inside the box was a lemon pie. Daniel stared at it. Victoria had somehow found out about Grace. "I didn't know what to bring," she said. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Lily pulled out a chair. "You can sit at Mom's seat." Daniel almost stopped her, but he didn't. Victoria sat down quietly. That afternoon, they ate pie that was almost as good as Grace used to joke about. Lily told stories. Daniel listened. And Victoria, a woman who had spent years surrounded by people waiting for her instructions, sat in a small apartment and finally said something nobody around her had heard in a long time. "I don't know what to do next." Daniel looked at her. He understood that feeling better than anyone. So he gave her the only answer he had. "Then don't do everything tonight." Victoria smiled through tears. Outside, buses groaned past the building. Inside, Lily laughed. And Daniel realized something Grace had tried to teach him before she died. Sometimes courage isn't chasing danger. Sometimes it isn't fighting. Sometimes courage is simply noticing the person quietly asking for help and refusing to pretend you didn't see it. Because you may not have the power to fix someone's whole life, but you may have enough kindness to make sure they don't face their darkest moment alone. And sometimes, that is where hope begins.